So before we jump into the skills, I want to say a little bit about change in this video. The foundation of this entire course we're going to go into is an understanding of why we've developed the patterns we have, and in many ways, how they may have been adaptive and things that we learned to protect ourselves throughout our life. The reason most of us are here, though, is that change, at least change in the direction we ideally want, is really hard. Surprisingly harder for most of us than we often think, but also very possible. Some of you may even be starting this course because there was something happening in your relationship or recognition about yourself that you were trying to shift and maybe having a hard time doing so. So change is complicated, and there's actually a neurobiological reason why brains and the humans they are directing struggle with change. At the same time, neuroscience also has shown us the beauty of neuroplasticity and that change is absolutely possible, and rewiring very ingrained patterns, which in brain terms are our neural pathways and wiring, is not only possible, but we are designed for it. We just have to learn how to work with our wiring. The next lesson and all of skill module 1 is going to go into the neuroscience in more depth on this, but the short version is that human nervous systems are designed to create adaptive and protective behaviors and mechanisms to try and keep ourselves safe and loved, and those then become our ingrained neural patterns that we are working to rewire. So the process of change then requires a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, and willingness to look inward at your patterns and behaviors. The skills I mentioned briefly in the last section of relational consciousness and U-turns are some of the skills that allow us to begin to do this, which can basically create that foundation for change. However, one thing to make clear is that when I use the terminology skill, it's not something many of us can just do overnight. These are things that require practice, lots of repetition, slowing down, and patience. It means coming back to the table over and over again with curiosity and compassion while working through things. For many of us, compassion toward ourselves as well as toward our partner may not come easily. So that is also a skill in and of itself that can take considerable practice to build. A quick little summary on neuroplasticity and how brains change and the typical time process it takes. This comes from Dr. Dan Siegel's work, where he basically talks about the process of true long-term trait change as taking up to 2 years. And he talks about that process of change and maintaining change over time to include 4 steps or stages that he calls skill, practice, state, trait. So in the skill stage, you're learning new skills and ways of being, along with adopting new ways of looking at the world. In practice, you are trying those skills and doing it over and over and over again. That's what we were just talking about. State is if you are practicing those skills a lot, it will take about 2 to 3 months for a new practice to become what is called or known as a state. A state is an entire neural network or brand new way of being that emerges when you are engaging in that new skill after repeated practice. Then after around up to 2 years, if you access that state regularly, it can become what's known as a trait. So a trait is a habit of how you are in the world. So this is where that becomes sort of easy and a natural thing you do. I say all that to normalize the process and remind us again about practice, and that if it's taking time, you aren't doing anything wrong. That is just how this kind of profound state and trait change works. Don't worry, we'll revisit all of that. Another integral reality that is really important to emphasize when we're talking about the idea of change is the fact that no one can actually control or change another person. You may be able to influence them and can absolutely make requests for them to work on change, but each one of us can only directly change ourselves, our actions, and our role. Within that is actually a ton of empowerment, because change is possible within our own body and mind. And by focusing on yourself, your patterns, and your role, you can change a cycle, even if you can't change your partner directly. You can theoretically change a cycle and pattern just by changing how you engage with that pattern. When we change our own patterns and reactions in a cycle, which is part of what this course is conceptually exploring, the cycle does by itself, by default, change, and that invariably gives the other person an opportunity to change as well. So this means that we are shifting focus as we start this course to looking and focusing on ourselves, our pattern and reaction, and off of blame and hyper focus on what your partner is doing. If both you and your partner are engaging in this process of looking inward and self-growth, then it can create a profound shift when we both buy in and focus on our end. For those of us, and likely there are many who may be taking this course without your partner in hopes of understanding issues or things your partner may not yet be willing to look at, in those cases, changing your patterns can still theoretically have a major impact on changing a cycle because, again, the goal, regardless, is focusing on yourself and what you can shift within you. I've designed the course so you don't have to take it with your partner in order to learn and educate yourself and open up to shifts in your self-awareness, self-understanding, and self-growth. So if you are on your own in this process and your partner has not joined you and you're working on yourself, it can help you to figure out what is changeable within you and what you can and can't accept in your relationship. So whether you are here with your partner or on your own, a large part of the focus of this educational program and skill building is on empowering yourself, giving you agency to work on what is within your power to change and grow. Again, I reiterate that this is a course providing conceptual education and skill building and does not provide any direct therapeutic support or ability to understand the nuances of how any of this applies to any individual relationship. So before we wrap up, the last thing I want to mention on this topic of change is that I think clearly setting and articulating your goals for what you want to get out of this course and what you're hoping to achieve and change is helpful. I think about goals in relationships as spanning three broad areas. The first I call your shared vision. That is your shared vision, hopes, and dreams for your relationship, the shared values around what kind of relationship you're hoping to create and maintain as a couple. The second is your goals for yourself. This has to do with how you show up as a partner and the things you recognize that you want to work on within yourself. And the third is the requests of your partner. So notice I said requests, not goals for your partner. That's because this is things you are asking them to consider working on in their goals. However, they actually decide what their goals are going to be. So in the structure of this e-course, I actually included this step at the very end of the course in the final module, integrating everything. The reason is that after you've developed an understanding of all the skills, once you've engaged in self-reflection and self-curiosity, you'll hopefully have a better sense of what you actually think you want in your relationship and what areas you specifically want to work on and feel you need to focus on and practice. So at the end, you can write out your shared vision, your goals for self, and the requests you have of your partner. So please hold on to that idea. And if you feel clear on any of those now, then great. Then please download that PDF and jot those three goal areas out now. But if that feels overwhelming or unclear at this stage, then hold on that. We'll revisit that at the very end in the last module. So stay tuned for more on that at the very end of the course. Right now, the thing I definitely do recommend at this starting point is I want you to write out two basic things related to goals. The first is to write out now what I call your big why. That's what's your reason and purpose in taking this course and why devoting this time to learning about relationships, having a better relationship, and wanting to understand yourself and your partner is so important to you. Your big why is a reminder of your motivation that helps you follow through on your goals. Then make one small goal for how you want to hold yourself accountable for engaging in the process of the course itself, whether it's a goal to complete one module per week or maybe even just one video per week. Pace it however you think will be realistic and will work for you, but give yourself a touch point so you don't lose track, because getting through all of it is important in truly getting the full picture. So that's it for now. Jot down that big why and your accountability goal, and I'm excited to see you in Skill 1 and get started.